Everything on the line has come down to brass tacks, but you just can't really go out there and put a guy in the starting lineup based on what he's done all season long. So resume, don't consider that, Fabs. Who you sitting this weekend?
Tom Brady's star is fallen for this week. Do not put him into your starting lineup against the Buffalo Bills. This is his personal kryptonite.
Oh, wow.
In his last 5 games against the Bills, 3 touchdown passes, averaging 9.3 fantasy points per. Earlier this season, the Bills literally held him to next to nothing. Tom Brady needs to be on your bench this week.
Yikes. Akbar, are you going with someone as shocking as Tom Brady?
Well, I'm going to tell you this again. Yeah, I'm going with Derrick Henry. I'm going to tell you this again like I did last time. And the last time I said this, I got eye rolls and Twitter trolls because everyone's like, are you crazy? Derrick Henry, I said to trade him earlier in the year because I didn't like his playoff matchup. You saw he gave you 8.6, 8.7, whatever that fantasy points against the Houston Texans. That was no touchdowns in that game. And now you're going up against the New Orleans Saints. He's going up against the Saints who just we saw how he shut down the Colts. That's a tough defense. Marlon Mack and those guys. I'm not messing around. I told you I ain't playing around when I'm watching these tape. I'm telling you, don't play this guy. You play him, I'm sorry, you're going to lose your championship game. I'm telling you here it is right now, first.
Listen to him now, hear him later. You heard what Akbar had to say. Marcus, how about you?
Yeah, by the way, eye rolls and Twitter trolls sounds like a bad mixtape.
It does. It does.
Speaking of which, Kenny G, man, he's not moving a lot of units in the last few weeks. In fact, he's become very touchdown dependent as the Lions have gone through different quarterbacks, whether it's Jeff Driscoll, now David Blau. I don't like his odds of trying to find the end zone this week against a Denver secondary that's still been pretty good. They're giving up yards on the ground to running backs, not so much through the air, so I don't like Kenny Galladay.
Yeah, his sound scan numbers, they've been terrible. 5 of the last 6 games, fewer than 65 yards. Now, in case you missed it, the Giants, they placed tight end Evan Engram on the injured reserve. His season, it's over with. So, Fabs, do you trust the passing game in New York this week, fantasy-wise, without E-double?
I kind of do, because they're playing the Redskins #1. Eli Manning's a nice deep league sleeper if you're talking about super flex or 2 QB leagues. Sterling Shepard's a hot ad off the waiver wire. He's a flex starter. Golden Tate could fit into that category as well. And then Darius Slayton has been very underrated. He's going to be a flex option this week, too.
All right, well, it's officially official. A.J. Green, he's missed the entire season for the Bengals with that bum ankle. He says he probably won't appear in Cincinnati's final 2 games. Instead, he's going to focus on rehab for next season. So if you were hanging on to Green and still made it to the finals, you can officially drop the Bengals star pass catcher. But Marcus, does he have some value when it comes to next season in keeper leagues?
I don't think so, not much. Look, I think he's still a very talented player, but there's so much unknown about his future. Does he stay in Cincinnati? Does he go somewhere else?
Patriots?
Yeah, possibly. But I think where he ends up in drafts is going to be far enough down that you could probably still get him without spending a lot of draft capital.
Yeah, Fabs, that would bring new meaning to we're on to Cincinnati. Now, in case you missed this, the season has also come to an end for old Matthew Stafford. The Lions, they placed their franchise quarterback on injured reserve with that back injury that kept him out since week 9, transverse process fractures. Now, David Blau, he should be the man in Detroit for the remainder of 2019. Now, in other news, Rams quarterback Jared Goff will not be restricted in practice or the game this Saturday, says his head coach Sean McVay. Now, Goff, as you may recall, he suffered a thumb injury during the Rams' overwhelming loss to the Dallas Cowboys. Fabs, I see you smiling.
How about
there.
the Cowboys?
So, Akbar, would you trust JG in your starting lineup this week? What say you?
No, come on. I think everyone knows this, that you're going to stay away from Jared Goff in the championship going up against the San Francisco 49ers. That's an elite defense that's going to put a stop. And this has been a struggling year for Jared Goff.
So when it comes to your top 5 defenses, Week 16, championship week.
Yep.
I see him, but I need you to walk us through.
Yeah, I'm going Niners at 5.
Okay.
Great matchup for the Broncos at 4. The Ravens at 3. The Steelers at 2. And no surprise, the Patriots at #1. They have been the best defense in fantasy football.
They've been good
the entire year. In fact, they're averaging 50.5 fantasy points per game. That's the most by a defense since 2000 because we can't go any further back and look.
Yep.
And they scored 23 fantasy points earlier this season against this week's opponent, the Buffalo Bills. So they are a very solid start.
Allowing less than a touchdown per game, too, or less than 2 touchdowns, rather. So that also pretty good. How about number 2? You have the Steelers.
Yeah, the Steelers, the Patriots have been great. The Steelers have been pretty darn good. They've given you 12 or more fantasy points in all but 2 games since week 2. The matchup this week is great against the Jets. They're giving up over 3 sacks a game, and defenses have averaged the 3rd most fantasy points against Sam Darnold and Gang Green.
Okay, the Steelers are good at getting after the quarterback, and the Ravens, they're just good at getting after the football.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, you know, they didn't have a great performance the last time they played the Browns, but did you watch last week? The Browns look like they're a team that's, like, ready to implode. And Baker Mayfield is 3rd in interceptions among quarterbacks. He has 19 turnovers. That's what you want. You want a quarterback who's going to turn it over, and Baker's done that, so the Ravens are a top 3 unit.
Okay, I told my best friend Mike Tanksley to be sure to pick up the Denver Broncos defense because he's playing for a championship. You have him at number 4, right?
This is probably the best streaming defense in fantasy football this week.
Ooh.
They actually have ranked 10th among defenses in fantasy points since week 12. Defenses have averaged nearly 4 sacks and 2.5 takeaways against the Lions since week 12. And defenses have scored the most fantasy points against David Blah and the Lions during that time. So the Broncos are out there, guys. Go out and get them and start them.
Okay, finally, it's a good old NFC West matchup. San Francisco, they're good at defense.
They absolutely are. They have some injuries. They're dealing with some injuries, but they rank 3rd among defenses in sacks. They're also 3rd in fumble recoveries. And Jared Goff, what do we want? Quarterback that's going to turn the ball over. 4th among QBs in interceptions. He's tied for 5th in fumbles lost. He's dealing with that injured thumb, so the Niners should be able to turn Jared Goff over a few times in that contest.
We are standing by. We're going to pick some of the best waiver wire options for your championship weeks. We're going to look at quarterback, running back, and wide receiver.
This is important. This is so important.
So we'll start with the signal callers. You got 4 options here. Where are you going?
Well, I'm looking at all of these, and none of these really look as nice as the obvious Ryan Fitzpatrick. And I think the matchup, though, too, suggests that Ryan Fitzpatrick is the best play going up against the Cincinnati Bengals, his former team. So he's a little invested in showing them, oh, look, he's played for a whole bunch of teams. But my point is he's really been clicking with Devontae Parker. His numbers since week 12, amazing. 21 fantasy points per game. And once he gets into that rhythm, you can tell he's fully into this offense. He understands it. He gets it. I think this is going to be an outstanding play for anyone who needs an emergency quarterback.
I mean, it's wild. He's been a fantasy playoff star for a lot of folks.
His nickname is Fitzmagic.
I mean, I guess we should know better, right?
Looking at the running backs, 4 options here. Tony Pollard, who did big work last week alongside Ezekiel Elliott. Adrian Peterson, who just keeps on going. Art Alexakis' favorite running back. I will buy you a big house way up in the West Hills. Hey.
But you know what? The guy I'm going with, it's Mike Boone here. And I know right now the Vikings are saying that Dalvin Cook's shoulder looks like it's good, that he could be ready to play this week. But look, I just need to be sure, right? Alexander Madison was inactive last week. So if things go bad, Mike Boone's going to be that guy. And I just want to make sure I have that insurance going into this week.
Well, it's very important, too, at the wide receivers. You look at these guys. You got Anthony Miller, Brashard Perriman, Conley. Conley, I'm out of this. He's out of this conversation. I get it that Ward, with all the other injuries, he should be getting some opportunities. Last week was Brashard Perriman's week. I mean, he went off. With all the receiver injuries going out to hamstring, he's going to get a lot of looks. So this is a very valuable one, but I think we can't miss the opportunity with Anthony Miller. You look at what he's done in the last 5 weeks, and it's been outstanding. The last 5 games, 11 plus fantasy points in those games. And not only that, it's the amount of opportunities. Trubisky, he's got a different edge to him now. He's playing with the chip on his shoulder because he realized his career, it's up there. I mean, people are starting to question whether he's that man, and he's utilizing this wide receiver, 10 targets per game in that span. Anthony Miller could be key goal for you in the championship.
Well, especially because the Chiefs really struggle against slot receivers. They're good on the perimeter, not so good against the slot.
That's a great point, yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. All right, Cole.